Have tall grey alien leaders from Orion just been captured by the Galactic Federation of Worlds?
You are listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, social, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. Visit exopolitics.org and sign up to receive our email notifications, news, and information. Be informed and be aware with Exopolitics Today. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
On September 30, I received an update from Elena Danaan and her extraterrestrial contact Thorhan Eredyan concerning a contingent of tall grey alien leaders from Orion who had just been captured by the Galactic Federation of Worlds. It was claimed that the tall greys were the same aliens that had in the 1950s reached an agreement with the Majestic 12 group without President Eisenhower's approval, and selling out humanity in the process. If accurate, the capture marked a major step forward in humanity taking back control of the solar system. What follows is the update I received from Elena about the capture of the Orion tall greys. Quote, Elena, Thorhan connected with me telepathically where he was, in a dark room with other personnel of the Federation, looking at high transparent cylinders containing a bluish gel. 9 of them contained each a tall grey in stasis. I could identify in the room High Commander Ardana, the Science Commander Denethor, some Umites and other beings from different races. Thorhan, these are Eban, a very rare and exceptional catch, Thorhan said. Elena, I know that the Eban are at the head of the Orion Nebu group and the ones responsible for the treaties with MJ-12 and the military-industrial complex. It is extremely difficult to catch them, he continued, as they play with frequency shifts, interdimensional jumps, and temporal hide-and-seek games. And when we happen to catch one, it discorporates instantly. As you know, we found the frequency to lock all their portals in this star system. This is how we caught these ones, trying to escape via one of the portals near Saturn. End quote. It's important to emphasize here Thorhan's intel that the Ebans are the leaders of the Orion Nebu, tall greys from the Orion constellation, and it was this group that met with and made agreements with the Eisenhower administration. These meetings and agreements with the tall greys were first discussed by William Cooper in his 1991 book, Behold a Pale Horse. He wrote, quote, Later in 1954, the race of large-nosed grey aliens which had been orbiting the Earth landed at Holloman Air Force Base. A basic agreement was reached. This race identified themselves as originating from a planet around a red star in the constellation of Orion, which we called Betelgeuse. They stated that their planet was dying and that at some unknown future time they would no longer be able to survive there. End quote. Elena later added that the captured Ebans came from Betelgeuse, matching what Cooper had earlier revealed. It's also worth pointing out that the ability of the tall greys to transport themselves via frequency shifts, interdimensional jumps, and temporal hide-and-seek explains the need for a frequency grid being created around the planet. In a previous update from Valnek, received from Megan Rose, it was described how new technologies were being provided to US Space Command to prevent the tall greys and other negative groups from using such sophisticated means to infiltrate Earth and create havoc here. Elena continued the update she received from Thorhan. Quote, Thorhan, it is a great catch for the Galactic Federation because for the first time we are about to triangulate their brain frequency in an attempt to neutralize the frequency transmission from their queen consciousness and get to it. As you know, the Nebu function as a hive consciousness. For the first time in the history of this galaxy, we are going to crack this code. They won't stay here on this ship. They are about to be transported to a safer place. Elena, why are they kept in the dark? Thorhan, they thrive on ultraviolet light. Our regular light harms them. We need to preserve them alive. All the Nebu try to leave this system. Many have already, hoping to gather forces and come back. Hence comes the need for deactivating their central consciousness. Once disconnected from it, they will be useless, neutralized. End quote. This is a point that both Elena and Megan have made about Draco reptilians and Orion Greys now departing our solar system due to the intervention by the Galactic Federation, upholding their prime directive. The Dracos and Greys have the intention of returning with new allies, and time was short for humanity and the Earth Alliance to prepare advanced planetary defense technologies and a powerful space fleet to protect the rest of the solar system. In Thorhan's update, I was intrigued by the parallels with the Borg as depicted in the Star Trek series and how brain frequencies were used for individual members to link with the collective. I asked Elena about it, and what follows is the conversation between us. Me: this is good news, Elena. So they are like the Borg. Once separated from the hive mind, they are useless since they haven't developed individuality. What is it about their brain frequency that connects them to the Queen mind? We are talking about something very different to implants, right? Elena: oh yes, totally. All Greys with the reptiloid genome, such as the Eban, Zeta, Grail, Solipsi Ray, Dohu, etc., are on a hive-type social structure. Yes, like the Borgs. No, we are not talking about implants. It is something totally different. There is no technology involved. We are talking about consciousness. Although they have individual thinking of their own, their minds are calibrated on a specific same brain frequency connected to a central consciousness called the Queen. When orders come from this centralized Queen, they cannot resist and they obey, just like the Borg. I'm not sure if it is a real Queen. It may be a supercomputer or a sort of supra AI. I don't know, but it is called Queen. This Queen is located in the Orion M42 Nebula. They have individuality, but it is very basic. When the Queen sends an order, imagine a quantum spider at the center of a web. Everyone receives it and takes over the brain functions and the basic individual thinking. Once disconnected from the Queen, and so from the hive, they are lost and useless. So the Galactic Federation is trying to hijack this Queen. Exciting. The Nebu agenda was to do the same thing with humanity. End quote. This was a fascinating answer. The tall Greys were linked through consciousness with the Queen, and implants were not part of their communication process. This means the communication process is similar to bees and other insect species, where the hive mind is conveyed through consciousness alone, allowing the Queen to control the collective. Importantly, implants would be used by tall Greys for tracking purposes rather than communication, as exemplified in the abduction phenomenon, where millions of human abductees have been implanted over decades. The Grey implants appeared to be more sophisticated than the crude RFID chips that were mass-produced by major companies such as Siemens to track humans abducted and or taken into the slave trade, as I explained back in December 2015. An abduction happened to Elena when she was 9 years old, and the Grey implant was repurposed so it could act as a communication device with Thorhan and the Federation. Elena's update from Thorhan appeared to be very good news. The same group of tall Grey leaders that had reached agreements with the Majestic 12 group were now in custody. I was intrigued by what their fate would be and asked Elena or Thorhan some questions about it. Here's the relevant Q&A with Thorhan. Quote, me: there were 9 of them in capsules. Are they part of a governing council of some kind, or just 1 or 2 leaders and their minions? Thorhan: they are the equivalent of officers, part of a special high command. They were fleeing Dulce base and trying to escape by the Saturn portal, located near their former Saturn base. They are not part of a council. We need to examine them first, and when we reach satisfaction, we will revive them and take them through the usual procedure. No negotiation. Nebu don't negotiate. They kill the elements of the hive who have been infected, to use the term they employ. Me: also, will there be negotiations for their release, a trial of some kind, or will they just be experimented on to crack the code, etc.? Thorhan: they have security brain shields we need to crack through. As long as they remain stunned, they can't send a signal to the hive, which would result in their remote removal. Elena: removal? Thorhan: their consciousness would be instantly removed from their body envelopes and merged back into the global consciousness of the hive in Uru-an-Na. It's the equivalent of killing them remotely, getting rid of them before they release more info. End quote. Thorhan's response makes clear why the Orion Greys are a formidable force in space that operates much like the fictional Borg Collective does when it comes to terminating the lives of its captured personnel. The reference to Dulce Base is also significant, since that is the same location identified by the whistleblower Phil Schneider, who described the 1979 firefight there that led to a significant number of US Special Forces being killed by the Tall Greys. What supports Elena's latest update is that longtime contactee Alex Collier has just come forward in an interview corroborating the information being released by Elena and Megan Rose about the recent liberation of the solar system from the Orion Greys and Draco Reptilians. Alex gave a timeline for how this is playing out today and how negative extraterrestrial groups such as the Tall Greys are being captured.
The primary date of September 25th to October 17th, many things were going to occur, and that by the end of October, well, certainly by the end of October, we should clearly know in which direction humanity's going, and that by somewhere around the middle of December, before Christmas, this should be over. In other words, the battle between the light and the dark. At that point, it'll just be cleaning up, rounding up tribunals, things of that nature, but the war itself would be over. Most of the regressors that have been on the planet have been removed, and those who are still here hiding, they virtually have surrendered because they have no choice.
The information from Alex's Andromedan extraterrestrial contact, Mornay, directly supports the information that the Orion Greys are losing their temporal war with the Galactic Federation, Andromeda Council, and allied extraterrestrial groups. The apparent capture of this group of tall grey leaders involved with the agreements reached with the MJ-12 group is yet another sign of a profound shift in terms of humanity's expansion into space. This suggests that the underlying power structures behind space exploration have been altered in fundamental ways, as Elena and Megan have been reporting, and as we are witnessing today with the rapid expansion of space operations by the US military and aerospace corporations to bring about a Star Trek future. This has been Dr. Michael Sala with Exopolitics Today. Finally, I want to announce that there's less than a week to go to my final webinar for 2021, Galactic Federations, Councils and Secret Space Programs. In it, you'll learn all about how these different extraterrestrial organizations have historically intervened in human affairs and how they've interacted with different space programs in the US and other countries to help bring about humanity's liberation. Join me on October 9. More information at exopolitics.org.